If you retire at 65, there is a stretch of years, usually about 8 of them, where you have more control over your tax bill than at any other point in your entire adult life. More than when you were working, more than you'll ever have again afterward. And most couples spend those years doing absolutely nothing with them. Not because they're careless, because nobody tells them the window exists, and because during those years it genuinely feels like everything is going great. So let's talk about the gap years, what they are, why they're so valuable, and what it costs to sleep through them. Here's the setup. You stop working somewhere around 65. Maybe you delay Social Security to get the bigger check, so no benefit is coming in yet. Your paycheck is gone, and required withdrawals from your retirement accounts don't start until 73, which means for roughly 8 years, your reportable income is whatever you choose to make it. Think about how strange that is. For 40 years, your income was decided by your employer. Your W-2 showed up in January and told you what happened. You had almost no say. Then, in your 70s, your income gets decided by a formula in the tax code, a required withdrawal percentage that goes up every year and does not care what you want. But in between, for about 8 years, nobody's deciding it but you. You can have 20,000 of income or 140,000 of income, and it's entirely your call. That's the window. And it closes. Now, why does it matter so much? Because of how cheap the bottom of the tax system is for a retired couple. Married, filing jointly, both over 65 in 2026, the base standard deduction is $32,200. Add $1,650 per spouse for being 65 or older, and right now, through 2028, there's an extra senior deduction of $6,000 per person on top of that, which means the first $47,000 or so of income is simply not taxed at all. After that, the 10% bracket runs through $24,800 of taxable income, and the 12% bracket runs to $100,800. Add it up, and a couple can pull roughly $148,000 out of their accounts in a single year and never leave the 12% bracket. Now compare that to what happens later. Once both Social Security checks are running and required withdrawals have started, that same couple is often sitting at 22%, with a big chunk of their Social Security dragged into taxable income and with almost no ability to turn any of it off. So the gap years aren't just cheaper, they're the only years where cheap and controllable overlap. Let me make this concrete with a couple. Call them Ray and Susan, both 65, both retired. Between them, they have $900,000 in traditional retirement accounts, $150,000 in a brokerage account, and some cash. They're living on about $70,000 a year, which they're pulling from the brokerage and from savings. Version 1. They do nothing special. 8 years go by. They report very little income and pay very little tax, and they feel like they're winning. Meanwhile, that $900,000 grows to roughly $1.3 million. At 73, their first required withdrawal is around $49,000 on top of Social Security. And that number climbs every year for the rest of their lives. Version 2. Same lifestyle, same spending, same everything. Except every year they also convert about $70,000 from traditional to Roth. 8 years of that is more than $550,000 moved. They pay tax on it at 0, 10, and 12% as they go, because they're deliberately stopping before the 22% bracket starts. At 73, Ray and Susan's required withdrawal is a fraction of what it would have been. Their Social Security is taxed less. They have a large Roth balance they can tap in any year for a new roof or a car or a medical bill without moving their tax return 1 inch. Same money, same lifestyle, 2 completely different retirements, and the only difference is what they did during 8 years when it looked like nothing needed doing. If you're doing the math on your own gap years right now, you're exactly the person I make these for. Subscribing keeps them showing up. Now, 4 things that make this window bigger or smaller than you'd expect. Because it isn't the same 8 years for everybody. If you were born in 1960 or later, your required withdrawals don't start until 75, which stretches your window to 10 years instead of 8. That's an enormous amount of extra room, And a lot of people in their late 50s right now don't realize they have it. If you claim Social Security at 62 instead of 70, your window shrinks dramatically because that benefit starts filling up the low brackets immediately. That's not automatically a reason to delay. There are good arguments on both sides, but you should at least know you're trading away part of the window when you claim early. If one of you is still working part-time, that income eats the window too. Sometimes the smartest thing a semi-retired couple can do is take a lighter year on purpose. And if you're still on a marketplace health plan before Medicare starts at 65, be careful. Raising your income to fill a bracket can cut your health insurance subsidy, and that can cost more than the tax you saved. For those specific years, run both numbers before you do anything. One practical question comes up every single time, so let's answer it. Where does the tax money come from? If you convert $70,000, you'll owe somewhere around $8,000 or $9,000 in tax. The best answer by a wide margin is to pay that from your brokerage account or from cash. Not from the retirement account you're converting. Pay it from outside and the entire $70,000 lands in the Roth and starts growing tax-free from day one. Pay it from inside and you've shrunk the very asset you were trying to protect. Which means this strategy works best for couples who have some money sitting outside their retirement accounts. If literally everything you own is in a 401k, you can still do this. You just have to convert smaller amounts and accept that a slice of each conversion goes straight to the tax bill instead of into the Roth. Here's the part that's easy to miss. The extra senior deduction I mentioned, the $6,000 per person, is currently scheduled to run only through 2028. It's a temporary provision. It also phases out for higher incomes, starting when a couple's income passes $150,000. So for a couple in their late 60s right now, this isn't a window that's merely open. It's a window that's open unusually wide, for a limited number of years, and then it narrows. I'm not telling you to panic. Tax law changes constantly, and something else may replace it. But when a deduction has an expiration date printed on it, and you happen to be sitting in exactly the years it applies to, that's worth knowing rather than finding out later. Here's what I wish somebody had told me sooner. The gap years feel like a reward. You've stopped working, your tax bill collapsed, and it's tempting to just enjoy it. But a low tax bill in your late 60s is not an achievement. It's an unused resource. The government is offering you a rate you will never be offered again. And every year you don't take them up on it, that year's allotment vanishes. It doesn't roll over. There's no catching up in your 80s. The couples who handle this well aren't paying less tax in their 60s. They're often paying more, deliberately, cheerfully, on purpose, because they've worked out that it's the last time it'll ever be this cheap. So your takeaway is a single question. If you're between retiring and 73, ask yourself, how much room did I have in the 12% bracket last year, and how much of it did I actually use? If the answer is all of the room, none of it used, you have a very specific and very solvable problem, and you probably have a few years left to solve it. If this was useful, subscribe. Next week, I'll take another piece of retirement planning that everyone repeats and nobody checks, and we'll see whether it survives contact with the actual numbers. I'll see you then.